Lovely. Is Alan here?
He is.
I am.
That's right. I haven't got you on my list of people. That's all. Hang on, I can do something about that now, can't I? I do that. So I'm on my other device today, so now I can. Oh yes, I can see everybody that's here now. Okay. Right. 6 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, people on YouTube or wherever are watching, and a good evening to all the members of this committee. Unfortunately, you've got me trying to chair it tonight. Jane is she's feeling a great deal better, but she actually said she was, it's the concentration and things. You expect everybody to complain about the breathing and but she was saying how tired she feels, and the whole family are the same. She was just concerned that she wouldn't have enough concentration to chair the meeting, and then asked me to. I'm not quite sure why. Obviously thinks I can concentrate more. Right. As everybody is here, we will start with 68420, declarations of any disposable pecuniary interests. Disclosable, not disposable. Have we any?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. If anything comes up during the meeting that you think there might be, then just shout and we can take note of it then. 685, apologies for absence. I know we have the chairman's, Jane, but do we have any others? No? Okay. Must all be here then. 686 is to confirm the minutes. These have been, in fact, there's minutes for 2 separate meetings, but they have all been through full council. So basically, it is just a case of moving the minutes unless anybody has noticed anything in the meantime. Do we have any objections anywhere? No.
Move the minutes. Chairman.
Right. Move the minutes.
Move the minutes.
Now we move to the contracts update 687. I'll ask Alan to come in with that. You have got paperwork for that somewhere in our bits and pieces. So
unfortunately, Chair, I wasn't able to get this out earlier. So what's on the screen now will be the first site that the
right.
have. I promised you and the Chair when we had our pre-meeting that I'd have this up and done, and it was one of those promises that unfortunately I haven't been able to keep. What's on the first page has been previously tabled at earlier meetings. On the second page, I've updated it to the extent that I can. We have had additional tenders, but I just can't find and confirm the documentation that goes with it. So I haven't put as much detail on this slide as I could, because I didn't want to put the wrong tenderer on and start a situation where someone thought that they'd been awarded a tender and in fact they hadn't. So we just, as a senior management team, we just need to put in place a process to ensure that all this information is recorded as it happens and we update it. But just in terms of the new tenders from the November meeting, the last 2 are TTC 20008. That's the toilet cleaning and opening of sites on the weekend. That was approved by ALP as gone through council. So that information is correct. The one about play park maintenance, there were quite a few tenders there, and I wasn't too sure which tenderer had actually been successful. I just have to kind of better master the information that's there, so I will just confirm that. And the other change has been the Carnegie roof repairs. We did a tender for that, but I think that whole process has been withdrawn and been re-evaluated, and possibly the tender documentation will be reissued. So those are the changes from the November meeting.
Okay, so we're basically waiting for that to happen as and when. Has anybody got any questions? Can't see anything. Nothing in the chat.
No, thank you.
Okay, so we will note that, and it's ongoing really, so it's not going to cause us too many problems. So we'll look at that at the next time, and we will move on to 688 committee financial decisions.
Nothing got that at the moment.
Chair, I've just put the ones on the slide. This is a continuous document that runs from the beginning of the mayoral year. I have just put the ones that we've added again since the November meeting. That slide that's showing now shows that information.
Okay, so we've got those in front of us, and we have a recommendation at the bottom.
That's the recommendation that was taken by the planning committee at the December meeting. That was also tabled at the council meeting on the 5th of January, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and has anything happened along those lines as yet? Have you heard anything from the partnership?
I'm aware that the application was submitted. I'm not aware that we've received any information back from the county council.
Right. So basically, it has happened what the what full council wanted. We have put in the application, and now we're just waiting NCC's time. Yeah.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. That's about where I got as well. Is there anything else on there that anybody wants to bring up? No. Okay. So we move on to 68920, which I will give to Alan to explain what we are looking for this part.
Thank you, Chair. Our financial regulations over the years have had this process of virament or virament. Sorry, my pronunciation will always be virament. So if it differs to yours, I do apologise. But basically what the financial regulations do is they empower the town clerk to wire money from one budget vote to the next, up to an amount of £10,000, and thereafter it has to be approved by the Finance Committee. What the financial regulations also state is that the RFO must, when the town clerk exercises the right to do a virament, that must be tabled at this committee and noted at this committee to give it legal effect. Once this committee have noted that, an instruction is given to the RFO and myself as finance manager to update the budget. So what we've had is at the ALP meeting in December, there was a virament to move money from the property maintenance budget to fund the refurbishment of the shambles to an amount of £10,000. That was authorised by the town clerk, and it's just a matter of this committee noting that and then instructing that the budget be changed accordingly. The reason I've introduced this is that we've had situations where money's been moved around, but it's never been formalised, and it actually becomes quite difficult from the finance officer's perspective, and I'd imagine from the council's perspective, when we're not keeping track of how we're spending unspent monies in one budget and moving it to another one. So this will be a standard item going forward in the Finance Committee agenda, and we'll just keep track of those particular environments.
Will this be helpful for internal and external auditing purposes, because this will now go through a committee, so it will be minuted, and therefore there will be a paper trail? Is that correct?
That's correct. So if someone had to say to us, had we spent money within the budget, we'll be able to go back to this particular process and say, yes, the Finance Committee have approved the environment if it was greater than £10,000, or they've noted that the town clerk has done it if it's less than £10,000. So it does create an audit trail for internal and external audit.
I always wonder where they get these words from. I mean, I'd never heard of environment. I mean, basically it's a proposal to spend money.
it's where you've got unspent money in one vote, and you would rather redirect it to another vote, but you're not increasing the overall budget spend council-wide. So if one department might say we budgeted to spend money on this particular item, we no longer want to do that. We want to spend it on another item, provided the unspent doesn't is not exceeded. It's just a matter of changing the budget and moving it around, but keeping an audit trail of those particular decisions.
So this becomes an agenda item month on month, so that we can see it, it's budgeted, and then obviously we can go backwards and forwards. Yeah,
correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that?
No, I just think it's a good idea, because then, because we're noting it in the future, when I can remember one time people kept saying, oh, we've still got 5,000 in there, but they hadn't, because they'd moved it beforehand and it wasn't being accounted that way. So I think this will make life more easier.
Yeah, I must admit I'm with you on that, Brenda. It's one of those things that when you see it there in front of you, you actually say, hang on, this makes sense now. I've got a place to go. I've got a reference point at any time that I can go back to. So I think it's a lovely idea, and I think it will be very good for us in the future.
I concur.
So there's no more questions on that. We now note it and we know that it's there. And we will move on to something that we've actually got to approve. We need to receive the listing for payments made since the last meeting. Normally this would be a monthly thing, but because of various bits, I think that's a bit more, isn't it, Alan?
It is. It's from the November meeting, so it covers November, the latter part of November, December, and up to last week. So there are five schedules. These schedules have to be tabled to the councils. They distributed in the information that's sent out. There's certain payments authorities in terms of the bank mandate, and in the documentation those are set out. So in certain cases, that the officials can sign, approve the payments. In other cases, it's the official and the chair of finance. And in other cases, there's been a situation this last period where two councillors have actually authorised payment. So those schedules set out that particular information. And this is also critical from an audit perspective, because when the auditors come and ask us, they say, have council approved that? We point them to these schedules and to these minutes for them to be able to prove that particular point.
Again, just as a question from me, it obviously doesn't matter if it's retrospect.
It doesn't. Theoretically, what in smaller councils, the way that the financial regulations have done, you would make it. You could have retrospective approval, and you could also have a payment. A small, because it would be very short, a listing of payments to be made in the future, and the town clerk would use that authority. But because we're so big and our operations are quite complex, we're mostly doing it retrospectively, because it was quite confusing to put the information in part of our accounting records, tabling it, and then trying to distinguish what was payment to be made from a payment that is made. So what we're doing at the moment is we're only tabling payments that have actually been made, on the proviso that if any councillors looked at those schedules and said, can we have a look at the transaction number, I would provide that information. And just when we were having physical meetings, I used to bring the files along, just in case someone would ask, could we see that particular piece of documentation to get assurance or ascertain what it actually related to.
Again, you see, this is something that I think is really good. I don't know how many of the other councillors have ever looked at this in the past, and yeah, it always seems to be one of those things that you just sort of nod at and say, yeah, okay, fine, that's fine. But really, it's nice to have somebody that is going to tell us, why we did it and how it works. So I thank you for that. I know the chairman knows because she's really clever and it's her expertise field. But I think for the rest of us, it is so nice to have it so that we can actually see, and learn as to why we have done so. Are there any questions on it?
No, but I'd just like to say, Roy, the key thing is if the finance have said, oh, we've signed this, so and so signed this off, we wasn't sure, we can actually go in there because we've got the paper trail, and I think that's the important thing. Was this done? Because whenever you're making payments, people have to sign them payments off. Don't matter who it is, but we can actually check that that's been done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As I say, but it's nice to have been told that you can actually go back. I must admit, my original thought was that why do we approve these payments that have already been? But I didn't realise it was so that we can get them into a format that we can go back to as and when we want to. So, as I say, I'm learning all the time. I must admit, this has been a very good year as far as I'm concerned with finance, and I'm learning more about council finance than I ever knew before. And I will say to all the other members, please, if there's anything you don't understand, either bring it up here or talk to Alan, because he does actually make it really quite straightforward. I'm thinking and sort of trying to get him to go into homeschooling for the grandkids, because I'm sure he could teach them a lot better than my boy's doing. But it is good because we learn. So, are there any more questions on the approval of payments?
No,
Chair.
Okay, so we move on to 691, financial report for month 9.
Do you have to vote on that recommendation, or are we recommending that to full council?
Gets recommended to full council, so we should vote on it. Sorry.
So we actually have to have a vote on the approval of this. Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
All those in favour? All those in favour?
I
Agree.
Agreed.
Against? No, that's passed unanimously. Now we'll move on to 691.
Chair, would you like? Sorry, my screen every now and again will disappear. It's not. You don't have to do any adjustments on your side. The report for the 9 months ending 31st of December, we put it together. We've captured most of the information. We have a process in place to ensure that we get as much of the information put into the accounting records as possible. For the first time, it's actually showing a slightly better position than we anticipated. If we have a look at the total income, you'll see that the income in the yellow column, the year-to-date for December 20 is 972,000. We had budgeted to have 982,000, which is in the blue column. So at the end, for the first 9 months, we were about £10,000 down on our budgeted, what we expected our income to be. Where we have done a little bit of a turnaround is on the expenditure side. So if you have a look at the total expenditure, again in the yellow column, our actual expenditure year to date is £765,880. We budgeted to have spent £835,701. So we have a positive variance of 69,821. So what that means is after 9 months, whereas we anticipated a loss of 40,000, at the moment we're sitting with a surplus of 59,708, which is in the green column. Now, how that's happened, whether it's because we haven't spent as much as we have, whether it's the Christmas period, I'm not too sure. But I do expect our expenditure to pick up a little bit in the last 3 months. But if I had to kind of do a synopsis as at the 31st of December, things are not as bad as we possibly expected them to be. But we've still got the last 3 months of the financial year. Typically, we do a lot of expenditure in that period of time, so that surplus will disappear, or may disappear. But the thing is, our revised budget, which is the column on the very right-hand side, it's unlikely that we're going to exceed that. So we've always forecast, when we did this way back in July, we forecast that we'd have a deficit of 39,831. That's unlikely to happen. So it should hopefully be better by the end of March. But it's still early days. Our spending has come down. So, there's not much more I can say other than it's not as bad as we expected it to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I love the colour codings on this and the way that you can actually see at a glance what you're looking at, whereas before you used to get those brackets and all sorts of strange things which really sort of took a lot of sort of digesting, but this just jumps out at you straight away. So again, I'll ask if anybody has any questions.
I've got my hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Didn't see it. Okay. Yeah, go on, Jen. Sorry. Yeah, got it. I've got looking in the wrong place.
That's fine. I was on the expenditure, Alan. It's got the variance of 375 for the venues, events, marketing. What's the expenditure? What was that for? The 37. I know it's only not as large as the thousands, but it's just that it's popped up in red as a worse than budgeted. Is that something that's been spent?
I think what we've done is we've used the opportunity with the venue being closed. We put in some extra cameras on the Market Square, which has gone to expense, and we've also had to replace a bollard on the marketplace. So I think that's where, because the markets, the maintenance of the Market Square and markets sit under venue, events, and marketing. And I know from their budget they've actually had those costs, which we didn't anticipate when we did the budget.
Oh, right, that's okay. Lovely. Thank you ever so much, Alan.
Perhaps we'll ask the mayor to make the difference up. He seems to be going all right. Now, you want to make note of that, Mike, and make sure that you're on this committee next year, or you'll see what might happen.
I mean, there are detailed schedules which have the breakdown of the income, which were also distributed to councillors, and the various items show up there. And there's the same for the expenditure, which goes over 2 pages. So if any, if any member of the committee looks at this a bit later on or would like to question, I'm more than welcome to answer questions at any point in time.
Thank you. That's that is nice, as I say, because it's sometimes you look at these and you think, oh yeah, that looks all fine, and then when you sit down with like many of us have nothing to do for half an afternoon, you can have a little look, and then you say, oh, hang on, I didn't realise that. So again, it is nice to know that you're there. If we want to come back to you, Alan, I can only thank you for that. Anybody got any questions while we're here this evening?
Yeah, I have, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Alan, can you go back at one page? The shambles.
Yes.
It's not expected that further shambles legal costs. So obviously we've got the bill for that. So does this include any spend that we've got to do on the shambles?
No, the legal, and I think you're talking about the account 5172, where it's expected that further shambles legal costs. We're still waiting for I still think that there are going to be more legal costs coming in, because we've sought the advice for one of the ALP meetings. We went and got advice from our solicitors as to how to deal with that. So I'm sure that there is some more billing that will come through on that. The actual expenditure on the shambles is under projects, and so that I haven't included that information on this particular schedule.
Okay, so it's just the legal costs we've got to worry about at the present then.
Yes, hopefully it's not as great, but I am expecting some bills to come through in the next month or so.
With any luck at all, the solicitors will be as slow in invoicing as they are in working. I can say that.
Right then.
Okay. Right. Anybody else that has anything on this particular section? No. Cool. Jane's going to be pleased with us. We get through it even quicker when she's not here. 692, which is the external audit report.
Chair, we talked about this at the November meeting. It was just, I gave an update of it, but in terms of the requirements, we have to actually table this report, and it has to go through to full council. The report has basically got two issues on it. The first one was relating to the publication of the notice. I misread it. It actually states 30 working days, and I misread it as 30 days. So the auditors have points. The other issue that they raised was that we didn't restate the comparatives. When I wasn't involved in the 2019 finalization of the AGAR forms, but there were major issues. So it took quite a while to sort them all out and explain it to the auditors. I didn't want to cause more confusion by going and then doing a further restatement on top of all those adjustments. So I didn't restate them, and the auditors have just recommended and stated that we should have restated them. Does it make a significant difference? From our personal perspective, no, because we disclose on the AGAR forms, which goes to the public, we only disclose, aggregated amounts. So I'm not too sure that it makes that much of a difference. But they have raised it, and the council, if they want more information, it's their right to demand and sanction me if they believe it appropriate.
So basically, we recommend that we accept this, or we recommend to full council that we've noted it and are quite happy with it, and that they should do the same. Yes?
Correct.
Yeah.
Agree.
Agreed.
Agreed. Should we have an amendment that if anybody wants to slap Alan's wrists, they can go and do it? Have they seen how big he is?
Don't think we need that.
But how big it is, how fat I am.
We won't put any amendments on. We'll just go with the recommendation that the Finance Committee received and noted the external audit report, and everyone's happy. Yep. And we put that to full council. Anybody against that as a recommendation to full council? Nope. In that case, we take it that it is unanimous. We now move on to 69320, update on finance officers reforms, so that we can note what changes are starting to happen.
Thank you, Chair. This document, I've done this document from when I first started at the council in August 2019. What it does is it just keeps track of all the various projects that we're doing. The one that really disappoints me is the ordering and buying part of that, because every time I think I've got to grips with that, I keep finding more problems and more challenges. What we have got is we don't have an inventory system or a stock system in place. So as we buy certain expensive items, they're getting expensed there and then, even though they might be used in different financial years. So I'm having a process to address that. We've got things like street furniture, which is quite expensive items. We've just we ordered litter bins, for example. There's 8 of them. They come to just under with VAT, just under £2,000. But if we only use some this year and use some next year, we should actually be expensing some of it this year and some of it next year. So the whole ordering and buying function, we are making improvements to it, but as we try to do that, we still find some challenges. So that's really the one area that's a little bit of a disappointment. The VAT has just been a time issue. We've got to go back 4 years. So we've done all the data mining. It's now just a matter of putting that into a document and getting that approved by having our discussions with our advisors so that we can write to HMRC and explain to them what's happened, and we can rectify what we need to rectify. We may have a tax contingent liability, but in the previous year we provided money for that, so we have a reserve set aside just in case we owe the HMRC a backlog of that. On the next page, sorry, the VAT has just come across again. The investment strategy is something that we have to have tabled before the end of this particular financial year. It's very relevant, bearing in mind the discussions that we had on reserves during the budget process. So that document will be tabled shortly. It's got, like I said, it's got to be done before the 31st of March. Something else that we've added on is our staff timesheets. We have a very inefficient system and a very time-consuming system on that. We're trying to integrate that with some of the work that we're doing on the Carnegie, the temperature checks, etc. So that's being continuously looked at. I'm happy to have a meeting with the town clerk in the next 2 weeks to actually progress that and procure what we need to do. The other side, the last two of items that we've added on, it's extending the paperless accounting records and the virtual signing. We implemented that in last year. We thought it would be quite a challenge. I'm very pleased that we've actually overcome most of that. So we're extending that not only to just our purchase invoices, but we're going to extend it to everything, all our paper that we have from an accounting perspective, so that by the end of April, we can actually say we are paperless to the extent that that's possible. Our virtual signing, we implemented that system, and that is working fantastically well. I have to say my own expectations have been far exceeded, because I thought we'd have a lot of teething problems, but it's working exceptionally well, and it's probably even more thorough than it's ever been before. And then the last issue which I've added on is we, as a finance function, we're also responsible for doing the accounting for the Standard Forth Trust. We are doing a whole lot of things. There's very little mandates, there's very little guidance, there's accounting issues, and so we have a process in place to develop those, so that the Standard Forth trustees are aware of what we as Thetford Town Council are doing when we undertake the accounting function and the ordering and everything else associated with that. So there's a clear mandate and a delegation in essence, and there's a value proposition also attached to that, so that the trust pays Thetford Town Council for a service that it understands what it's getting, and it's a thorough service and protects the interests of the charity. So those items get added on. There's a lot of things that have fallen off the list because they've been done, but it's just a matter of keeping our eye on these particular things and becoming better and better, which is what we're trying to achieve.
So the traffic light system that you've got there, obviously the last two are in red because we've only just started doing it. Then it gets into green.
Once they're green, I've just put them there because we've actually done this. So these two issues that we have flagged up for quite a while, they're now in place. They're working exceptionally well. They will fall off. So I don't keep all the green ones there. Otherwise, there would be a lot of green, and you'd be getting the same information. So as soon as, like at the next time I do the schedule, those two green items will fall off, and we'll just focus on the things that still have to happen.
Do we have a process in place for sort of how long they have to be green before they fall off? Just thinking that, some things you suddenly say, oh yeah, well that's all done now and that's fine. But for whatever reason, my thinking is that if the external auditors came back to one of these things that had fallen off, would it then come back, and should it be on our to look at in green until such times as they haven't? Does that make sense?
What we're trying to do is, I think I do understand what you're saying. It was just that the document then gets so clustered because we've achieved as much as there's still a lot to achieve, we have achieved a lot. And I just didn't want the schedule to be there going from one meeting to the next when there's no change. These are mostly efficiency issues. I mean, we have to have accounting, we have to have good, solid accounting records, and that's what the external auditors and the internal auditors will be focusing on. This is just really to say, how are we actually managing it? Are we using, the best practices, and are we providing the right information? And so it's more of an operational management kind of look or focus rather than an accounting. I can't put here, we should keep accurate accounting records, because you'd fire me if we weren't doing that.
We weren't, yeah.
So these are the add-ons that we're trying to add value and actually kind of transform the accounting function from what it was to what it can be and what it should be.
This basically, if I'm correct, Mr. Chairman, this is like a toolkit. So it's council knows what's going on, and then as soon as you turn green and that's working okay, you take it off. I mean, there's nothing new coming back and asking, is that still okay? But normally they drop off because you have more coming on. That's normally how the traffic light system works.
Yeah, that's that. I just wondered whether there was a process, some line that you couldn't get rid of them until it had passed a time or whatever. Just a question. And I'm also wondering, might it be nice once a year to have all the greens put on a piece of paper so that we can see how much we have moved forward, and blow our own trumpets occasionally. Okay, just a thought.
I'll wait to be advised by the committee.
It's just something that might be worth looking at some time, because it is nice to know that you are making progress, and things have gone, and we have moved forward, and we've moved forward a long way with council finance, I think. So it might be something that we can have a little
piece of paper, right?
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. Then at least at the end of each year, you know what you have succeeded with, and what has been done, and that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Good idea.
I think so.
All right. Well, that's something that we'll look at as we get towards the end of the year, Alan.
Sure. Like I say, I'll take direction from the committee.
Yeah. As long as it's only producing something or showing us something that's already there, I don't want to cause any work in,
Yes, no,
particularly, yeah, it's just. All right.
Could I ask a correct question, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Alan, can you go back to your first page? Sorry, you keep moving about. Like ordering and buying, do we actually keep a stock check on what we've actually got? Because you're saying like you're getting down to the little day-to-day issues. So it might be, oh, I need a shovel, so I go out and buy one, and actually there's 10 down the bottom in the shed. Do we do sort of like a toolbox check to see what we've got, and then they might come along and say we need 4 new brooms. So the last time that they had 4 new brooms, so they haven't had them for months, so they need it. And then that passes through, and you've got that paper trail, and you also know what you've got. Because I think we've got little depots everywhere, haven't we?
I think that is one of the challenges, and it's taken a long time to address this particular issue, because we do have that. I think what happened when I came in, the one thing I noticed immediately is how difficult it is to get an order. So what people were doing was, because it was so difficult to get an order, they were bulk buying, because it was seen as quite a bureaucratic process. So if we need 5, let's buy 10, so that if we need another 5 later on, we don't have to do that. So I think there is a lot of off-record, and has been a lot of off-record buying, and I understand why that happened. What we've done is we've tried to make it a lot easier, and we've done 2 things. One is we've broken down the budgets into even more detailed items, so that, for example, if someone approaches me to buy something, I can go to Tina and say to her, yes, here's the budget. You can see it by, with your own 2 eyes that there is sufficient money in the budget. And the second thing is I'm trying to get the works team and the other teams to have ownership of their budgets, because at the moment they don't. So what we'll be starting this year, when I say this calendar year, is that I'll be meeting with the staff, the people that spend the money, and actually say to them, well, here you are. This is where you are. This is how much you've got. You have to monitor that, so that when you request an order, you understand as an official how much money is in your budget. And then the third thing is to have the stock system. But I don't want a stock system for every single nut and bolt, because I think we'll spend more time on that. It's being very selective on what items we want to do that with. So those are the 3 areas that we're focusing on at the moment.
Okay. Any other questions? We will. No? In that case, we will note that and move on to 694 correspondence.
Chair, I'm not aware of any correspondence that's come through. There is
no one's written to me either.
When I first arrived, I used to get letters threatening to take us to court and withdraw our credit facilities, but those have stopped a long time ago. So
well, we'll put that on that green, on that just the green things. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to 695. Have we any updates since the agenda was done?
No, Chair.
And 696, community engagement. Do we want to put it in the paper that we no longer get letters from people saying they're going to stop our credit? I don't think there's anything that we need to put in at this time. Has anybody got anything that they think we ought to get involved with?
No, I just think it's the town council, full council, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it's just one of those things that's put on all the agendas. So, okay. Well, there we go. In fact, I don't know what to do now, because I could close the meeting in under an hour, or do you want to keep talking for another 2 minutes and 15 seconds?
No, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, but no.
All right. In that case, I will call this meeting closed and wish you all a very good evening.